If I'm not audible, then let me know. Yeah, in case if my voice starts breaking anywhere. Okay. So yeah, what was the experience in all the interviews I had so far? So in general, there are, whenever you're if you're not a fresher and if you're interviewing for a company, then generally there will be 4 to 5 rounds, tech rounds, in which initial 2 rounds will be based on your data structures and algorithms, just to check your coding skills and to understand if you can think about a solution or not. Then the next 2 to 3 rounds, generally they talk about the high level design and the low level design, because if you're not a fresher, you might be hired for a senior position, or as a software developer too. And generally the expectation from SD2s are that they should be able to design the system, they should be able to come up with a design for a given project, and they should be able to think about all the parameters, different parameters which has to be considered during designing a particular problem, or designing a solution for a particular problem, or design, I mean, or when you're working on a project. So to test that skill or ability, generally there are 2 to 3 design rounds. Now there are two kinds of designs. One is, just a minute. Cool, thanks. Yeah. So generally there are two kinds of design. One is high level design, and the second one is low level design. So just to make it very, very clear for all of you, hey guys, if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask, uh, because I won't be able to open the chat, every time. So it would be great if you can unmute yourself and speak up. I'm not sure if why other people can't hear me. I hope like the rest of the people can hear me clearly. So in case of like a lot of you are facing, you know, issues with, please check audio settings. Yes. Yeah. So if a lot of you are facing any issues with, if I'm not audible, then just mention it on the chat. Great. Thanks. Thanks for confirming. I hope everyone can hear me. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Coming back onto the point, where we were talking about high level design and low level design. So just to make it very, very clear for everyone, uh, like high level design is completely different from low level design. There will be a round in which they'll ask you to actually design a system, uh, in the low level, and then design a system on a high level. We'll talk about each of these terms in detail, and how to understand if this question is a high level design question or a low level design question. We'll talk about that as well. Maybe I'll try to explain you with specific examples. Also, we will talk about the different topics you need to prepare for when you actually, when you're going through the preparation of high level as well as low level design systems. Now, what is high level design? So, can anyone tell me, like, if any one of you know what is high level design now, and maybe with the help of example, any one of you? Okay, cool. No worries. I'll try to explain. So basically, high-level design is a designing of the complete system. So you need to think of various parameters while you're designing the system. The first and foremost parameter is how your system will scale. So currently, let's say your user base is 10 or 100 or 1,000. How do you scale your system if the user base increases to 10,000 or millions or billions, right? That is the first and foremost question, which has to be considered, consider while designing your high level system. Okay. And then there are different kinds of questions you need to ask when actually you start with designing of the system, like the functional and the non-functional requirement. Now let's talk about each of these terms. So what is functional requirement? So functional requirements are the requirements which are provided or provided by the business or by the users, and you need to satisfy or fulfill those requirements to make sure that user is satisfied with the system which you have provided. For example, let's say you are trying to design I'll take a very simple example so that it's easier for you to understand. So let's take Instagram design. We need to create an Instagram. So what are the functional requirements in this? So functional requirement is basically user should be able to upload or download or view any photos which you have in Instagram. Correct. That is one requirement. The other requirement can be that you should be able to search people, or you should be able to uh, uh, search pages based on the titles. Correct. You should be able to follow others, follow and unfollow other users. You should be able to see the feed of other people, and you can comment or like on the photos posted, or or on a particular or a particular post. Correct. So these are very very basic requirements. Like uh, there are many more requirements, but I'm not going into that detail right now. What I'm trying to explain is that what exactly are the functional requirements. Okay. So before I move forward, does anyone of you has any question on functional requirements? Okay, great. So now let's talk about non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements are the requirements which are not actually provided by the users, but has to be decided or has to be discussed or decided by you as an engineer, or if you're a product manager, then yeah, definitely as a product manager, you need to come up with the non-functional requirement. So let me explain you with the help of an example what is non-functional requirement. So let's say, so okay, just before going on to an example, uh, so non-functional requirements are generally you know has to be, so generally non-functional requirements are required to give a better experience to the user, or to the end user, or to the middle man, like whosoever is in the middle of the project, and whosoever is actually the end user. To give them a better experience, we come up with a non-functional requirements. For example, let's say you are designing an Instagram. Correct. Now if someone has liked your post, you should be able to see that. Or if you are actually requesting for a particular simple thing, like you want to see the feeds. Correct. Now if the system itself is not available, you won't be able to see the feeds itself. So it's a bad experience for the user, because there is a lot of system and you are unable to see the feeds because because of the heavy load on the system. So the system should be highly available. So that is not something which is actually proposed or which came as a requirement from the user. But as an engineer, you need to make sure that your system is consistent or highly available or reliable. Other simple example is basically the latency itself, right? So let's say if you request for a particular query, if that takes more than a second or 3 seconds to return back a response, it's a bad experience for the user. Ideally, it should be in few milliseconds or microseconds, not more than that. Sometimes maybe in nanoseconds. Nanoseconds depends on the kind of query it is, right? So again, you need to take care of this as an engineer. This won't come as a requirement from the end users. Then so if I'm uploading any data, or if I'm adding any data into my system or my profile, it should be always available. It should not be removed at a later point of time, or shouldn't be lost. So that you need to you need to take care of it as an engineer, that how you will back up your systems, how you'll back up your data, how you'll make sure that your system is actually always up and running. It's not a bad experience for the user. if in case there is, because of some or the other reason, because of some or the other reason, the system is down, then you have DRs, data recovery systems, available so that you can easily recover the data which has, just a minute. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know who is this person, but anyways. Yeah. So you should be able to recover that data. So that is that has to become from your side. So that is what is functional and non-functional requirement to be served from the system. Now there are many other questions like how to maintain the consistency and availability on the system of the system. So we'll talk about these in details once we'll go through the course. So there is a like many of you might have heard of this term called CAP theorem. It's consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. We'll talk about this in details once we'll go through the course, and how you can actually use this theorem to decide whether you want, if it's a distributed system, whether you want consistency in your system or availability in your system. For an example, right? Just to give you an example, you should be able to come up with a proper requirement whether you need a, so as per the CAP, just to give you, a very high level idea of CAP theorem. So basically CAP theorem says that in a distributed environment or distributed system, either you can get consistency or availability with the help of partition tolerance. Now I won't talk about the partition tolerance in detail right now, so you can understand that either you can get consistency. Consistency is basically the data, whatever data is updated is available to you. Availability is that system is available, but the data might not be consistent. Okay, so we need to think about these parameters when you are designing the system. For example, if you are designing the system for a bank, if you have debited the money from someone's account and it has to be credited into another account, right? The system should always be consistent, correct? It can't happen that the system is not consistent, because that will lead to so many confusions, and that may lead to wrong credit and debit of the money from the bank accounts. So in such scenarios, your system should be consistent. But consider a scenario of Instagram or Facebook feed, where you have posted something. Although that post is not available to your friend within like few milliseconds, but eventually it will be available. But your friend should be able to see rest of your post or feeds. So that is known as availability, whether the system is available or not. So in case, even if the system is not consistent, it is available so that your friend can see other feeds, and eventually it will be consistent, because eventually they'll be able to see the post or the feed which you have added recently. So that is the difference between consistency and availability. And if you'll see, I have mentioned various topics which we need to discuss about, where you can see whether we need a consistency or availability. Okay, so that's about. So definitely we'll talk about this in details once we'll go through the course. Then comes the reliability of the system. How reliable is your system? Whether you have proper backups in a system or not, because data loss is a big problem for any user or any consumer. So how reliable your system, how you're maintaining the reliability, how you're making sure that your recovery is proper. So we'll discuss about all those things once we go in details about each of these designs. Then yes, this is very important, handling load on the system. So how to distribute? So everyone of you might know that there is never a single server which is handling the complete load, for your application. So how to handle, how to distribute the load equally amongst all the servers which you have, or how, if one of the server goes down, how to again distribute the load amongst the other servers. So you might have heard of the load balancer term, but we'll go into the details how load balancer works, and we'll see the different types of load balancing algorithms. We'll talk about that in detail once we'll go through load balancers, and what is the use case of load balancers, at what all layers do we need load balancers, why do you need load balancers, and if load balancer can be, if actually you can implement load balancer by yourself or not. So we'll talk about all these things in details. Um, yeah, in the course. And then, there are, we'll talk about the high level design itself, which is basically how to configure your servers. So what are web servers, how to configure your servers, then what are application servers, how to configure again your application servers, number of threads in the application servers required, how to connect web servers to application servers. Then then there comes your database layer. So how many servers do you need on the DB layer, how many threads you need on the DB layer, how to connect your application level servers with the databases. What if there is a lot of load on DB, how to maintain that. We'll talk about different queuing systems in the, you know uh, in the uh, we'll talk about the different queuing system between your application layer to your DB layer. What if your DB start returning, in the async flow? So we'll talk about the sync and async flows. What is the importance of async and sync flow? When to use sync flow? When to use async flow? Okay, how to retry in case of failures, and how to, in case of async flows, and how to retry in case of failures, whether how to reschedule your processes. So we'll talk about all those things once we'll go into the details of web layer, application layer, and DB layer connections. Okay. Then there is low level design. So what is low level design? So generally in interviews, low level designs are very specific. So in general, whenever someone talks about high level design, they will give you a wide problem, and you need to come up with the requirements from your own, and then suggest uh, uh, basically the solutions for them. In low level design, generally a very specific problem will be given to you, and they'll ask you to design the classes, how you will write the code, what design patterns can you use to make your code more readable and more robust. And I'm not sure if you have heard of this term or not, called cognitive overload. So that is very, very important. And like in the interviews, uh, there is a lot of importance given to this particular thing when actually you're designing your classes. So I'll just try to explain you with the help of examples. So let's say you are writing a code, right, for your project, or you have designed a class, and seems like the class, you have written the code, but the code is very, very complex, right? Although but it was easier for you to write that code, because I mean it was complex, and you didn't think about a lot of think a lot about the solution to make it much more simpler. So let's say you spent 30 minutes in writing that code, but there is not a single person who will actually, so there will be only one person who will be writing that code, but generally hundreds of people will be reading that code. So considering that, to understand that particular code, it takes 10 minutes for, so you wrote that code in 30 minutes, but it takes 10 minutes for each of the other people to actually understand that code. So if you'll calculate the total time which has been consumed to understand and write that code, will be 30 minutes plus 1,000 minutes of 100 people. So it comes out to be 1030 minutes. But let's say you spent 1.5 hours to simplify that code, and you make sure that the code is readable, it's robust, and it works well for in a long run. So let's say you spent 1.5 hours, so that comes out to be 90 minutes, but it takes only 4 minutes or 5 minutes for someone to understand that code. So that comes out to be 500 minutes plus your 90 minutes, so it comes out to be 590 minutes. So that is what is cognitive load, like how much time, overall time, is spent to understand and write that code. And that's where low level design plays an important role, right? So 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 what is tested in the interview is that how simple code you have written, how much optimizations have you done in your code. So all those things are you know are tested with the help of your low level. So if you'll see, so from whatever I've explained so far, high level design and low level design are completely independent. Based on the questions, you will understand whether you need to design, you need to do a high level design or a low level design. And you know, and we'll go through various questions on high level as well as low level design during the course. So the complete course will be of around 50 hours. So mostly I'll be taking the high level design topics, and I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, either me or someone else will take all the topics on the low level design. So before I move forward into each of these topics, uh, if any one of you has any questions, I hope there might be many many questions. So yeah, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
So you will start with the HLD part only, right?
Yes. So initially we'll start. So as I mentioned earlier, that both of these topics are independent. So what we'll do is we'll try to understand the high level design. So it will be good for you to actually get the understanding of the high level system first, and then we'll try to go deep down and try to understand each of those systems with the help of low level design. So I mean that is our responsibility to cover both the parts. So you don't need to worry about it. These two topics are independent, and you don't need to know low level design at all to actually come up with a high level design. Okay. So yes, I will start with the high level design, and then we'll go into the low level design as well.
So I have one question. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I have one question. Like for the high level design and low level design, like
Mhm.
suppose we got the idea how how to do the high level design. So is it through some implementation or just the theory wise we will come to know like how it will be?
Okay. So sorry, I didn't get your question
Yeah,
completely.
I'm asking like for doing the high level design, will there be some kind of some dummy implementation or something that we can have actual understanding how it works like in the code wise, or it will be just a theory like.
Okay, okay. Let me explain. So basically, generally, high-level designs are, as I mentioned here as well very clearly, right? That we don't need to implement any data structure for high-level design, or you don't need. There is no. So for high-level design, there is actually no code written specifically. Generally, the code is for your low-level design. So whenever you are designing classes, that comes under low-level design. Whenever you are designing your system, that comes under high-level design. So when you write a design document and you talk about the scalability, reliability, all those comes under high level design, correct? But to actually support high level design, you need low level design. So basically what you do is, so in general, when you actually start working on a project, right? First you write the design doc, then you write how to implement whatever, you write the design doc, you write the various processes, various parameters you need to consider, and then you come up with a solution for that, right? So that solution, and then you implement that solution. So implementation is low level design, correct? How you will design your classes, how you'll make sure that you support 1,000 queries, your system support 1,000 queries per load of 1,000 queries per second, 1,000 QPS. So that comes under low level design. But why do you need 1,000 QPS, or what is the use case of 1,000 QPS, how your system will scale? That comes under high level design. So in general, there is no code in high level design. So generally what they'll ask is, let's say you need to design an application for you need to design a weather application. Okay, how you will do it, what all parameters you will consider. So that comes under the high level design. So generally there is no, it's not expected from a candidate to write a lot of code in high level design. What they expect is that what are you thinking, you're thinking, how you'll design your system, basically how you'll consider various parameters, how you'll consider like of consistency, availability, reliability, then how you will do the load balancing between your servers, how you'll perform the hashing, consistent hashing. Now I don't want to go on to consistent hashing details, but basically how you will design. So a very simple example is basically how you will design your cache, how you will back up the data on the cache. So all those things comes under the high level design, and there are various algorithms which you don't need to implement, or you don't need to write the code for them when you're actually having a discussion. But when you come down to the low level design, then yes, definitely they might ask you to design a particular class in that case. So no one will ask you to write the code for complete Uber design in 45 minutes, right? Because it is impossible. It's not possible at all. You can't cover all the parameters or points. But in case of high level design, they might ask you like, okay, how you will. So let's say there is a driver and there are multiple users, rider. So how you will solve the problem of matching user to rider, or sorry, rider to driver. So that all has to be. Uh, so can everyone else be on mute? So sorry. Yeah. So yeah. So basically, how to how to match a rider with a driver. So that's a problem you need to solve. So no one will ask you to write the code for that, but you need to think about a solution that okay, there are multiple requests coming. Now, which request you have to honor first? So that has to become as a part that becomes a part of your high level design. That uh, you need to design a system where your multiple requests are coming, and you need to match a request of a rider with a driver. Now, should it be on the basis of your FIFO, like first come first serve basis, or should it be based on the distance? Or consider an example where there is a lot of request coming for pool, Uber pool. Now, how to actually serve those requests? How to optimize on the paths? How to actually calculate the nearest path or the nearest driver for a user? How to actually then there are so different graphs, and graphs are created in between. Then you divide the graphs into different rectangles, and then you calculate the distance for each of the rectangles. So all those things are not expected from you to write as a part of code. I mean, as a part of a design, they don't expect you to write the code for this. But how do you think, and how do you propose a solution? That is what is tested the high level design. So yes, we will go through each of these points in detail. It's there is, to be honest, there is no code written. But I mean, if you have any confusion, then feel free to go and check any one high level design on YouTube or anywhere, and you'll get an idea of design. So maybe design, Facebook news design or anything. So there won't be any implementation-wise details for HLDs. For LLDs, definitely we'll go through many examples. We'll go through a lot of design patterns, and we'll talk about each of this design pattern, and we'll definitely write the code for each. So yes, that is my answer to you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello, Prakhar.
Hello.
I had a question. Like, let's say, in case you said that sometimes they'll give very specific problem statements, right? Like matching the right to the driver. But let's say if they give a generic statement like design Uber or something, in
Yes.
that case, how is it like we have to scope it to some minimal thing that can be implemented, or like how do we go about in that case?
Yes, it's a really good question. And yes, you are right. Consider that someone has given you a question to design. Now it took for them to system. They don't with the complete solution. It's so impossible, right? So that's what we'll discuss in the course, right? Like you need to create or come up with the functional
Prakash,
requirements, as
sorry
I
to
mentioned
interrupt you.
before.
Your voice is breaking.
Is it? Okay. Just give me a minute. Sorry. Just give me a minute. Am I audible now? Or still not clear?
Yeah, it's clear now.
It's clear.
Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Yes, yes, you are.
Is it
Yeah,
better?
yeah. Now it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, let me repeat. I don't know how much part you have missed. So, as I was mentioning that, I mean, it took years for someone to design Uber or Google or, YouTube. So they don't expect you to come up with a complete solution in 45 minutes or, scope out all the requirements and then write a solution for that. So generally in that case, you need to take a decision. So you need to ask right set of questions from the interviewer that what exactly are they expecting. So you need to come up with the functional requirement as I was discussing earlier as well, right? And those should be very limited functional requirements and have a, so, I'll walk you through the distribution of the time for each of these, various categories as well in high level design. Uh, I'll walk you through that right now itself in some time. But just to answer your question, they don't expect you to come up with all the requirements and solve for all the requirements. You need to figure out the requirements, very, very basic requirements, propose a solution for that, do some estimations, and then go on to the high level design. And generally the questions on, HLDs will be very vague. So you need to figure out what exactly you want to solve for, right? So it's good in a way, bad in a way. Good in a way because, you have the power to actually, drive the interview. So if you know that you have expertise in this particular area, try to propose a solution or, try to come up with the requirements which you will be able to satisfy with the area of your expertise, correct? Bad in a way because if you come up with a lot of requirements, you won't have time. And if you're not clear with the requirements, then, and if you don't think about all the non-functional requirement, then it becomes very difficult for you to come up with a, proposal or the design within 45 minutes. So that is where, you need to know that how to distribute your time during the interview for each of these, for any design question, how to actually come up with the correct functional requirement, how to come up with the non-functional requirements, how to come up with the proper estimations, how to do the estimations. All those things will be covered as a part of high level design. And once you will go through like 5 to 6 design, I'm pretty much sure that you will feel confident and you will understand that, designing a problem is not very difficult. Again, to mention, there is no design in general which is considered as right or wrong. It's just a bad or a good design. So we need to come up with a good design, right? For that, you need to know the various parameters to be considered while designing any system. So that is what we'll try to cover as a part of this course. So I hope I've answered your question. Yeah, and don't worry about the cases where you get a very high level question and then how to come up with the requirements, because we'll go through it and we'll practice that properly when we'll go through the course. So that is something which you can leave it on me to make sure that you understand this properly.
Okay.
Cool. There are,
Prakhar,
yes, go ahead.
sometimes I hear that people, they ask about schema design. I mean,
Yes.
database. So that does comes under HLD, or like it should come under HLD, right? I mean,
Yeah, it will come under HLD. So if you'll see here, I've mentioned here web server connections, application layer connection, DB layer connections, and I should mention here schema design.
okay.
So again, that can be a part of HLD as well as LLD. So again, depends on the requirement, but generally, so in case of, so schema design is part of LLD as well as HLD, but definitely we need to, so again, right, in schema design, they won't ask you to actually put the indexes when you are designing, correct? But in case of LLD, they'll ask you how you will query this particular database. Or, so in HLD, what they'll ask is how much QPS your query can handle. What will be the time it will take to actually return the response? How you will design your system, whether it will be a relational database or, so basically SQL database or NoSQL database. So all those things will come under HLD. But when you come to LLD, right? And why do you choose to design to have SQL database instead of NoSQL database, or the other way around? what is the benefit of SQL DB over NoSQL DB, or again the other way around, like in a particular problem. So that all will come as a come under, and then again designing, just mentioning the tables that you want or columns that you want in the table. So that will come as a part of HLD. Now in the LLD side, what they'll discuss is what are the indexes you'll create, how you'll write the query, can you optimize this particular query, how you will, which type of, again, like database is already decided, so you know that columns are decided, table is decided. So what will be your primary key, how you will design, how you will maintain, basically your acid properties. But generally that is again not asked as a part of LLD. But what is, I'm forgetting the term, but okay, I don't remember the term, but there is a term where you need to create normalization, because how you'll do or normalize your data. So that can again be asked as a part of HLD or LLD. So it depends on the interview, but we'll discuss about all these parts in detail in HLD, and in LLD they may ask you to write query for that. That's it. But generally LLD is on the class designs and not on the database layer, but still interviewer can ask. But all those things come under HLD. So yes, that's an answer to your question. I think there's by when the HLD will be completed. Will it be completed by mid of February 20? So basically there will be 12 classes on HLD. And if you'll see that, if you'll consider there is 5th of January. So mid-February won't be possible, to be honest with you. But yes, we'll cover almost very important topics to actually design any high-level system. And then there will be discussing about many other designing problems, right? So once you know the basics, you can, and once you have gone through 1 or 2 design systems, then I think it should be simple, or you should be able to come up with a design for other problems as well. So by mid-February, we'll be in a stage where you understand all the basic terms and so basically various observations and various considerations you need to do when you're designing the system. And we'll go through 1 or 2 design systems by then, but we'll still have problems remaining by mid-Feb of 2020. Mostly, so there will, so accordingly you can consider that we have 2 classes on each of the weekends from the next weekend. So it will take at least 6 to 8 weeks from now. Okay, cool.
What about when we have requirements like functional and non-functional, that classification will be part of the HLD or LLD?
It will be part of HLD. It comes under HLD, right? Here I have mentioned what are functional and non-functional requirement to be served by the system. That will be part of HLD. Yes. So I'll tell you what all points are covered in HLD. So generally HLD, so first you come up with non-functional requirements. Generally there is a discussion between you and your interviewer for like 5 minutes on this. Then you have to come up with a non-functional requirement. So interviewer won't tell you the non-functional requirement, because as I mentioned, this is collected by the end user, or is on various UX research in interview. Discuss with the interviewer. Correct? Correct. Non-functional requirements proposed as a part of design by the product or eng. Okay. So that is, so this is your non-functional requirement. And then generally you have design considerations. So basically, even if you come up with all the functional requirement, you need to come up with the design considerations. Like whether it's a read heavy or a write heavy system. And talk about the latency, gap, all this comes under the design consideration. Then comes your estimations. So basically, how much memory you will require, how much, we'll talk about memory, your threads, servers, scalability, discussion, how long your system can survive,
Reliability, scalability,
Uh,
availability.
that has to be part of the design consideration. Yeah, scalability, reliability. I mentioned cap, but yeah, here. How long can your system with the current configuration? So all those has to be part of your configured. Then there comes high level design of the system. So in this, we generally talk about web servers, load balancers, application servers, database, DB layer configurations. Then we talk about, in this itself, we talk about schema, tables, we talk about SQL or no SQL. Then we also discuss about scalability. Again, we'll discuss in details here. Here we'll just talk about what do you need, and here we'll talk in detail how you will do it. Scalability, and then definitely your availability, consistency. We'll talk about this here.
Caching mechanism will be here.
Yes, all those will be part of your, whether you need WebSockets, or long polling, or simple HTTP requests. Then you'll have hash consistent hashing on your servers, DBs. Then you'll have caching mechanism. Then caching mechanism. Then you'll have sharding and partitioning of databases. So that also comes under this. And then you'll have a load balancer I've already mentioned. That I think we've covered almost all the important part as a part of high level design. And then the last part is conclusions of the design and how will you maintain your system. So all these things are discussed as a part of, these are the different parts which are discussed as a part of HLD. So if you'll see here in a 45 minutes, the weightage for this will be around 5 minutes. Again, 5 minutes for, again, 5 minutes here. So actually 5 minutes are not required for both of this. 7 minutes are enough, but I'll mention this is 5 plus 2, 5 plus 3, 8. And then estimations will take around. So this will take around 3 to 4 minutes on discussion. Then we'll have estimations for around 7 minutes. So by now you would have considered 5 plus 3, 8 plus 3, 11 plus 7. So around 20 minutes are gone. So rest of the 25 minutes are given to this part. So, and maybe a minute or two to this. And that's it. So that's how you're generally 45-minute interview is expected to be completed. Like you can adjust 2 or 3 minutes here and there because there will be some discussions. You will have some functional, you might take some more time in functional requirement, but that you'll have to cover up while designing your high level system. So basically it takes around 45 to 50 minutes to come up with a design. And generally, when we will talk about this, because we'll talk about these things in details. So we'll talk about these things in detail. So we won't consider, we won't try to complete all the designs in 45 minutes or 50 minutes, but I'll talk to Aditya and we might schedule a session for all of you where, you need to come up with a design proposals, or some like mock kind of designing discussion where, you need to come up with the complete design or in a group of 3 to 4 people. I'll talk to Aditya about this. This is just a proposal for now, where you need to come up with a design and like discuss amongst yourself and come up with a design within like 45 minutes to 50 minutes. We can have a couple of sessions on that as well, just to give you an experience of, the interview. So I'll talk to talk to Aditya about this particular thing. Like if you can have 2 to 3 hours given to that particular part. So yes, that is what we'll try to cover in each of this HLD designs. So these things first we'll go through each of this just to understand how it works, and then we'll talk about each of these topics because you'll have many questions as well. So it will take around 1 hour 45 minutes to 2 hours to actually discuss about all these things. And like I'll try to keep last 15 minutes for you to actually ask questions based on the previous topics or based on any designs in which you have faced difficulty, so that we can take it up in last 15-20 minutes. And if you have any particular question related to the design discussion, which we'll have in the class itself. So yes, that is all about the high level design. So yes, just to give you again, briefly tell you what exactly we'll discuss. So we'll discuss about the basics of system design, load balancing, CAP theorem, caching, how caching works, what are different caching strategies, what is cache eviction, what are different cache eviction policies, what is consistent hashing. This is very, very important topic. How it is used at various places, how the queues are designed. So we'll talk about all those things here. We'll talk about WebSockets, long polling, HTTP simple, request response. We'll talk about SQL databases, NoSQL databases. What is sharding? What is partitioning? What is the difference between two? Or what is the similarity between the two? How actually you can create a chart. Then scaling. I didn't mention it here. Scaling, horizontal scaling, vertical scaling. Sorry. Horizontal scaling and vertical scaling of a system. So this will be discussed as a part of this system design. Then we'll discuss various types of design questions itself, which are very famous and asked quite frequently in the interviews. So URL shortener, then Twitter design, YouTube design, Google search suggestion. Basically, when you type first 3 letters, you need to tell the next, possible, you need to give the suggestions, top 10 suggestions, and after typing first 3 characters and type overhead. Then your messaging or chat service will talk about different, tools, or like we'll talk about the different systems which are already designed to actually help designing messaging services. Like you have Zookeeper. What is Zookeeper? What is the importance of Zookeeper? We might talk about the Kafka queues. So we'll have a discussion on that as well, like, but on a very high level, right? We won't go into the details of Kafka, how it is implemented, but what is Kafka, how it is, on high level, how it can be used in our particular design question. Then, yeah, and then different distributed caching systems. We'll talk about that as well when we'll come on to the messaging chat service. Uber design, how to calculate the distance between two people or between a rider and between a rider and a driver, or what is the best optimal path for a driver. So we'll talk about that, how actually Uber has designed their system. So basically it's how do they convert the complete earth into a plane, and then how do they distribute it in different rectangles, and how do they calculate the distance between 2 points. So all those will be discussed as a part of Uber design. How the Facebook newsfeed or Instagram newsfeed is designed, we'll talk about that. What is API rate limiter? So basically, consider a system where your system, you're making a call to some external system, correct? Now your external system can support only the QPS of 1,000 or 100,000 QPS is too high. So 100. So how do you limit that on your side? Basically, you should not send more than 100 requests per second to the other system. So how do you limit that on your side? So I don't know if you have heard of this quota management service or not. So generally it's a quota manager. We'll talk about that, how you will actually limit the number of requests hit from your side. And we'll talk about different buckets which you can create in the, like what are the different solutions, how to create the buckets, and how to limit the quota from your side to the external system. So we'll talk about that in API rate limiter. There might be 2 or more design problems if the time permits. Like we might design a weather forecasting app or some kind of app. So that will be discussed as a part of HLD. Coming on to the LLD, we'll have different types of design patterns like builder pattern, singleton pattern. You might have heard of each of these patterns in some or the other way, but you might not know like what exactly are these patterns and how you're using it. So we'll go into the details. We'll actually try to write a code when we'll go through it. We'll discuss various examples in which you can use singleton pattern or factory pattern, abstract factory pattern, prototype, adapter pattern. What is composite pattern? What does composite mean itself? What is decorator, facade pattern, observer pattern? So this is very, very famous pattern. Like you might have heard of this publisher subscriber problem, right? So if you how the publisher will publish that data and then subscriber will subscribe to that data. So we'll talk about that in detail and when it can be used, where should we use it? How should we use it? So we'll talk about that as a part of observer pattern. Then strategies, how to come up with a different strategy to actually optimize your code itself. So all those details will be covered as a part of strategy pattern, template pattern, state pattern. How to template pattern is basically there is a template and then you follow that template to have various implementations. We'll talk about that as a part of template pattern. Then state pattern, how to actually manage your states or basically various states when you're designing your classes. So we'll talk about that as a part of state pattern. Chain of responsibility. So basically A calls B, B calls C, C calls D. So A can't directly call C. So that is covered as a part of chain of responsibility pattern. Proxy pattern is again creating a proxy of one of your class and then using it at different places. We'll talk about that, all these things in details with the code, with an example, once we'll come on to the low level design part. And as I mentioned, both of these parts are completely independent and one can be completed before completing the one.
Peter, what about the UML diagrams and all?
Sorry?
UML diagrams?
So, okay. So that will be again covered as a part of LLD, right? Low level design.
Okay. Shall we discuss here microservice architecture?
Microservice architecture will be discussed definitely as a part of HLD. So here in Uber, why do you need microservice? What is the usage of microservice structure. When should you use monolithic servers structure basically. We'll talk about, so most of the systems will be microservices. We'll talk about different services in detail when we are designing these systems. So Uber is completely based on microservices. So I'll give you, I'll try to explain you how different services can be designed. So again, in messaging chat, right, there might be few systems which can be microservices, which can be used in WhatsApp as well as Messenger. So how to actually, use the power of microservices when you're designing your system. So we'll talk about that as a part of HLD. So there might be many more terms included in this, but yeah, once we'll go through the design, then definitely they'll come up and we'll talk about those as well. Yes. But based on the microservice structure, microservice structure.
Prior is the rollable design like exhaustive. Yeah, able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Tell me.
Okay, so the low-level design, whatever the like design pattern that you mentioned, is the exhaustive list, or is something we'll be discussing apart from the list that is mentioned over there?
There are more design patterns. I have actually taken all the all the patterns which are important and which came in my mind. But there are many more patterns. So yes, if you have any particular pattern in mind which you want to discuss, you can feel free to speak up, and will be taken as a part of the course. So I haven't mentioned all the design patterns. So here also I haven't mentioned all the design I've given you high level idea of the designs which will take. So as I mentioned, right, maybe two or more design if time permits. Similarly, if we'll have more design patterns, but at least most of these will be covered as a part of the class. And whatever, so we'll bring you in the stage where you can design classes properly by yourself. You will be able to identify which design pattern to use, and I mean, you don't need to know the name, right? You just need to know how it works. So that is what we'll try to explain you as a part of this course. Correct. It's good that if you know the names, but it's very important that you should be able to come up with a solution when a particular design problem, low level design problem is given to you. So yes, there might be many more patterns which might be discussed as a part of this. And few of the name of the patterns are different in different books. So again, like once you will go through all the patterns, then you will understand that okay, it's the same pattern. It's exactly the same pattern as the other one. So, but yeah, don't worry about that. The patterns which I haven't mentioned it here will also be covered as a part of the design. Low level design. Yes.
What do you mean by reliability at a high level?
Sorry?
What do you mean by reliability?
Reliability is basically how reliable is your system. Whether is there any data loss happening in your system? What happens if you're because of some disaster, like your complete data or data center went down, how you will actually back up those. So all those comes as a part of a reliability factor. So that's a non-functional requirement which you need to come up with, and then a design concept. How you'll make your system more reliable is what is the part of the reliability. I hope I answered your question. Do you have anything else specific to reliability which you want to ask?
I mean, when you say reliable, is it like, as you said, like if a data center is down, if there is any other data center that is up and makes system available?
Yeah, I mean, not just data centers, right? Your server can also go down. So how you will make your system more reliable so that it returns the correct response. So we'll talk about that in detail.
How fast your service can recover if there is a failure?
Sorry?
It's more like how your system can recover if there is any failure.
Yes, exactly. There should be no single point of failure in your system. So you need to make your system reliable so that there is no single point of failure. Over.
Oh, got it.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Prakhar.
Yes.
Hi, Prakhar. Are we going to cover the design principles like solid principles?
So solid principles that might be covered as a part of low level design. Again, I'm not sure about that, but if you're mentioning, I can take it as a note.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, these are very basics. You can, but yeah, we can take it up. That can be covered as a part of the design. Okay, I'll take a note of this. Thanks.
Oh.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah,
And
Prakhar. So,
this one more question. These design patterns are implemented in which language? Like,
I think it should be language independent, but mostly we'll do it in Java because most of the people have experience in Java, and then once and it's easy for anyone to understand the code in Java. It's very simple. It's fairly simple. But if you have any specific language in mind, then like you can actually read design patterns in that language as well. It doesn't matter actually. It should be fairly simple because the concept of interface and implementation holds true everywhere. But like in C++, now you can say that there are no interfaces, but you have classes, and then you can actually, and then definitely like in you can extend your classes, class A to class B. So there, I mean, you can create abstract classes in C++. So there is a way to actually, so these are just the terms. Like all the languages have their own way of having interface implementations and all those things. So don't worry about that. I mean, but yeah, generally like mostly it will be in Java. Yes.
okay.
Languages should be fine. It should be language independent. So discussion will be language independent. The code might be in Java.
Sure.
Okay.
yeah, Prakhar. So, shall we cover about clustering also somewhere?
It will be part of this cluster creation consistent hashing. It will be there. Don't worry. As I mentioned, right? Like there might be few terms which I haven't used here, but will be covered as a part of the design.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yes. Cool.
Prakhar, for the people from Android and iOS background, like mobility, how much these HLD questions are valid? Like,
So, okay, it's a nice question. So basically, it depends on the company. My personal experience, like you and I take interviews in Google, and then my experience is that like everyone has to go through this process. So basically, if you're a Android or a iOS person, then still you need to go through the DSL go rounds and design rounds. So there will be for you there will be an extra round where they might ask you to design Android application. But again, or there might be few companies where they don't ask you to actually go through the design. You don't need to give the design rounds, but when you're actually designing your Android application, if you know design patterns, it's good for you because you can design patterns or high-level design. It's good for you because you can talk about all these things when you're designing your Android application. To give you a very simple example, right? Let's say you have written, so you're creating your page, right? And in that page, basically, or so I haven't worked on Android, so I might not be using the right terminologies there, but consider you need to design, the home page on the app, right? Now you have so let's say you make an async call from your so let's say you need to load few of the details. Now if you make async call or a sync call, so and what should be the latency, what can you show to the user when you're actually making an async call sync call, because it might take some time, how your async call should behave, like how you will get back the response in case of async call, whether there should be a GCM, like there should be some messaging queue which will tell you or which will send you the notification on your Android app or iOS app, when your service or async call is successful, whether you should have WebSockets or not when you're actually designing Android app, when should you use WebSockets. So all those things can be covered as a part of HLD, and it's always good to know all these things, because even if your interview is very specific to Android application development, if you know all these things, you can actually project or you can project yourself in a better way when you are designing Android application or iOS application. But
Okay.
yes, in general, in any big companies, when there are interviews, they won't just ask you about designing an Android application. They will go through the system design and data structures, algorithms as well, because at the end of the day you are working as an engineer, right? And you should be in sync with the backend engineer. So yes, I think it's very, very important.
Okay.
Prakar, how about SDET's role? Like, is it very much?
Sorry, I didn't get your question completely.
Yeah, how about the SDET roles? Like, is it applicable same as front-end engineers, or like what is the impact of HLD and LLD for SDET roles? I mean, the design round. Again, it depends on company, or
Is that role, you mean software development in test? Sorry.
Yeah.
In test. Okay, test engineers basically. I mean, see, the thing is that it's very, I would say the same thing, right? Like you should know all these things because you are testing those systems which are built based on these. I mean, not just from the interview perspective. Like if you're an engineer, you should know all these things, how your system works. And I'm not sure because I haven't taken any interview for the test engineers. So whether they ask system design questions or not, but ideally they should, because ultimately you are coming as a part of like you are coming under the engineering ladder. So you should be aware of all these things. Consider a case where you're sitting with some software developer, backend engineer, and you're engineering test, and you should be able to understand the system, right? So system design is actually asked. So sometimes in case of product, if you're a PM as well, they'll ask you some questions on system design. In Google, that happens. I'm not sure about other companies, but in Google that happens. So they might ask you a question about, like from the PMs as well. Okay, not in detail. Like they won't expect you to actually come up with a non-functional requirement or how you will design your system, but in general, like they should be able to come up with a high-level design of the system, or they should be able to understand that at least. So it's equally important for like for the roles which are related to engineers or PMs. So yeah, but you again, for PMs, you don't need to go into the details of each of this. As an engineer, you should know all these things.
Yeah, Prakar, I have one question.
Sure.
Before coming for this course, do you suggest us to go through like some of the important reads? Like for example, there is this course, Grokking the System Design Interview, and there is this book by Martin Kleppmann, like Designing Data-Intensive Applications. So if we go through that, it'll be better in the class participation and even to understand. So like, do you suggest something to do something of that sort, or something else?
I mean, if you want, you can definitely go through it. But personal suggestion, I'll start from very, very basics. So considering that no one knows anything, I'll start from the stage where no one knows anything.
Okay.
Explain everything. So you don't need to have any expertise. So see, again, the problem comes when, you go and read something and you understand it incorrectly. Correct? So I would suggest that if you want, you can definitely go and read by yourself. But don't worry. I mean, you don't need to worry that if you don't know anything, you won't understand anything in the class. It's my responsibility that you should be able to understand each and everything which we are discussing in the class.
Okay, so the classes.
That's why I'm saying that we won't have 45 minutes class, right? We'll have 2 hours because I know there will be so many questions.
Yeah, so it will be like Saturday, Sunday, right? 2 days in a week, the classes.
Yeah, only on Saturdays and Sundays. That's it. Yes. The topics will be informed to you beforehand. So, like if you know about that, maybe you can skip. But I would suggest you to join all the classes, and it will be only on weekends.
Okay, thank you.
Sir,
yes.
I have 2 questions.
Please go ahead.
As you said, you will touch upon all the basic from scratch. On the high level part, all of the design discussions will be on distributed systems. So if you touch upon the basic of distributed features or the nitty-gritties of it,
yes,
that would be good. Like how
Yes.
do we maintain consistency in distributed world, or how
That,
do we?
that has to be done as a part of,
Okay.
that is very important, right? Because otherwise you won't be able to understand. So that all those things will be covered. So that's why I mentioned, right? We'll cover all
Yeah.
the basics of.
Before. Yeah. Okay.
But before
Okay.
jumping onto these, first we'll talk about these things. Okay. You need to understand this to actually come up with this. Correct. So we'll try to understand this first. We'll go. Hello, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I have specific topic to be added, I will call it out. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want that, yeah, feel free to add, I mean, give your suggestions. Maybe you can put it in the WhatsApp group which Aditya will create.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
And the second part of my question is, today, do we have any topic to be left to be discussed?
I mean, no, I talked about all the details, right, which we'll go through. If you have any particular question, I can talk about it right now. But I mean, I told you, right, what we'll discuss, but what is CAP theorem, and I give you a brief idea about each of these topics which we'll be discussing. But in general, in particular, I won't take any topic today. Like I
Sure,
won't
sir.
do any topic.
Thank you.
Yes.
Prakhar, one question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you can spend like 2 to 3 minutes something that on the like based on the experience, the number of experience that we have, and the level of depth, the question related to design or system design pattern are asked in the interviews. I mean, it will help us to gauge like how much how much are we in need of this course?
Sure. So basically, if you're a fresher, generally it is not expected from you to actually, do the designing. In general, in like not as a part of the interview, but when you join the company as well. But once you have 1+ year of experience, it is expected from you in company to actually write the design docs, or come up with a design for a particular problem, or how you will solve, or at least understand the design. Okay. So whenever there is an interview, right, generally when you're fresher, they won't ask you any questions on design. But as soon as you have 1 or 2+ years of experience, then definitely this is a very important part, because even if there are DSLO questions, right, sometimes they expect you to actually come up with a solution where you consider all these parameters while designing your solutions as well. Just to give you an example, let's say, let me try to explain with the help of an example, like why it is very important. Because okay, sorry, just a minute, my battery is going low. Just give me a minute. So yeah, coming back onto the same topic, right? So let's say you got a question, right, where you need to manage files. Like there are different files. Now, like if there is let's say there is an array of string given to you, or array of numerics given to you, and you need to perform some operation on the top of it. Let's say you need to add all those numbers. Now, if let's consider that the file size can't be stored in one system, correct? Now, how to write a solution for that problem? So that can be asked from 2 years of experienced person. And now, if you don't know about the distributed system itself, you won't be able to come up with a solution. How you will store the file, how you will manage your file. So all those, I mean, once you know about these topics, it becomes easier for you to understand. But now, as soon as you have 2+ years of experience, generally you will go for a +1 role, basically a senior position. Not even if not a senior position, you will, even if you go on a lower, on the fresher role, it is expected from you to actually know the design, because you will be definitely promoted before a person who has joined fresh out of college, right? Or in most of the cases. So it is expected that you should know at least the design. So I joined Google after a year, after an experience of 1 year. 1 year. I mean, I started my interviews after having 1 year experience, and like there were 2 design discussion rounds. They asked me to, design a weather forecasting app, and how I'll take that problem. Although they won't expect from me to actually go through each of these things in detail, but even after 1 year of experience, they asked me to come up with a design for that. And then there was another question which was asked from me in other company. I won't. Okay, yeah. So they asked me to design a cart. Design a cart experience for a user. It's an e-commerce company. So yeah, I won't take a particular name, but yes, it's an e-commerce company. And then they asked me to design the complete cart system or cart experience for the user. So yes, it is if you'll go to any big firms, right, or tier 1 or tier 2 companies, they generally expect from you to actually at least have one design round or whenever there is this managerial round concept nowadays. In that as well, like half an hour they'll discuss about mostly about your previous projects or how you'll handle some situations, but in the other half they would ask you to actually solve a particular problem based on your previous project. So again, if you know about all these topics, it just adds a value to your portfolio. So that
Okay.
is
I think. Yeah, thank you.
If you have any question in particular, I can answer that. But in general, yes, it is important. I mean, even if you're not interviewing, you should know all these topics. That is what I'm trying to say, because it will help you in your company when you're designing things. So yes, that is the answer.
That's true.
Anyone else? Any question? Or?
Yeah.
One
So
quick question. Are we going to discuss like any kind of design, like the patterns, like repository pattern or dependency injection or something like that?
That will be covered as a part of LLD. Yes, it will be covered. I mean, I might not have mentioned all the patterns here as I mentioned before as well. In case if you have any particular pattern which you don't understand or which is difficult, you can feel free to ask. You can ask in the group, and we'll see if we can consider that as well. But these are the patterns which are generally used while designing classes. So we'll try to cover those first, and then if there will be any additional patterns which you want to discuss, we can definitely go through it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Professor, one question. Where do we decide what storage mechanism we need to use in high level design? I mean, like in which step we will decide?
I can't hear you clearly, man.
So at what step in HLD we will decide like which storage we need to use?
So that can be decided at so basically in the design consideration. So as I mentioned, read heavy, write heavy system, latency cap, scalability, reliability. Here you can discuss, but in general, it is discuss here in detail, like what exactly to be used, like sharding and partitioning, consistent hashing, whether you should which schema. Yeah, here SQL, no SQL. Right? That is what was your question, right? So we'll discuss that as a part of high-level design. Is that clear? Sorry, I didn't understand your question completely. If you.
So I was asking about like where do we use, in what step actually we will decide storage and network bandwidth kind of things.
This will be as a part of high-level design. So estimations. So there will be some estimations. So during the estimations, we will discuss about threads, memory, servers, all those things. Then when we go to the high-level design, then we'll discuss about the tables like SQL or NoSQL DB, like what kind of storage it will be. So we'll discuss about all those things as a part of high-level
design. Okay. Prakash, can we say like system design is combination of both HLD and LLD, or system design is only HLD?
So it depends, right? So yes, exactly. System design is a combination of both HLD and LLD. Nothing wrong in that. But so high level design and low level design, right? So system design, if you need to design a complete system, then you need to know both. But in general, like when they ask you about, I mean, yeah, you can say that. Yes. To answer your question, yes, system design is basically HLD and LLD. But in general, when the system design terms comes up, right, it's mostly that they want to talk about the HLD, and then if required, they'll go into the LLD. So on a high, I mean, system design is basically designing of the system. So first you design the system, and if you want, you can go into the detailing of those systems. So that is LLD.
Okay. Also, I think you said us like LLD will be taken by some other people, or you might take it. But one thing is, like, when you explain any of these topics like Twitter design or YouTube design, so you will be helping us to understand data model for a specific feature.
Yeah.
Obviously,
So data model will be discussed. The code won't be written. Like the data model, by data model, you mean how you will store the data, what tables need to be created. All those will be discussed. So you don't need to worry about that. Like how do you need to normalize your database. So all those things will be discussed as a part of HLD. Now going on to the code part, how you will design, what classes do you need? Okay. How you will implement that class? Do you need any design pattern? What is the best pattern which will fit here? Whether you need to create interface. Why do you need to create interface? How many implementation do you need? So those all will go as a part of low level design. But HLD, we will actually design in HLD, we will talk about these an application layer, what all APIs do you need? So that will be covered as a part of HLD. Now we won't implement those APIs because those will be discussed as a part of LLD, but we'll know that what APIs do we need, what queries do we need. So all those will be discussed, or basically what tables do you need. So all those will be discussed as a part of HLD design. Correct?
Okay. One last, are we going to discuss anything on performance or monitoring or no?
Performance and monitoring. I can talk about that. I'll try to take it as a part of one of the lectures. Let me add it. Performance definitely will be discussed because performance, the latency I've mentioned clearly multiple times. Monitoring of the system. Okay, I'll take it.
If you add Amazon or Flipkart, any of e-commerce application, because that question we see very common in interviews, that would be great, or it's fine.
I'll try to take this as part of the design. Yeah, should be fine. How you'll design a monitoring system, right? Sure, I'll take it as a part of HLD.
My second one is, like, if you can design any Amazon or Flipkart or any kind of e-commerce application as an example, that would be great.
Okay, let me add that as well. Okay. Cool.
Thanks, Prakhar.
No worries.
So, Prakhar, will you also discuss any design solution for any security or authentication things?
Yeah. Okay, you're talking about authentication, authorization, all those things. Yes, it will be covered when we'll discuss this. So see, these are, I'll tell you, right? These are small things, but like I didn't mention it explicitly because I mean, now how to implement auths, I won't talk about that, but what is authentication, what is authorization, what how do you, what is the difference between the two, why it is important. So we'll talk, we'll discuss about all those, and I'll try to cover that topic for sure in one of the design. So that will be discussed. It depends, right? If you really need authentication, authorization, so consider Facebook, Twitter design, right? If you have to design a login page, then what is the authentication, authorizations, then groups authority. So pretty much sure that it will come somewhere in the design. I can't give you the guarantee that it will be discussed as a part of this topic right now, but yes, authentication, authorization will be there as a part of one of the design discussion. So
Okay, thank you.
generally I cover it in, let me just take a look. But yeah, it will be covered somewhere. Will be covered. Don't worry about that. So I mean, I can definitely not cover it as a part of Google search suggestion type over it. It will be covered, I think, as a part of news feed or some design pattern will sorry, not design pattern. We'll cover it as a part of one of the design. Don't worry. I mean, I might add maybe in the designing of e-commerce platform we can discuss about that. I've discussed it in past, so I don't remember exactly where it will be discussed, but yeah, I'll discuss it as a part of one of the
Prakhar, means when you shall be discussing around WebSockets and long poolings, shall you discuss some kind of sample applications like some notification applications, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, when we'll go through, so we'll definitely talk about, so I'll explain WebSockets and long polling, but when we will actually designing the system, I'll ask you questions that whether you should use WebSockets here or long polling or the HTTP request. So see, these are the topics which I'll try to explain first, but each of these will be part of this somewhere. Like when should you, whether you require, so you don't need WebSockets in most of the design except messaging. There you need WebSockets because you are continuously you're getting the response from someone else. Now how
Yeah, like there is some notification coming from some
exactly.
application.
So I'll discuss about that. So here I'll explain you these terms, but when we'll come on to this, right, this will be covered as a part of these topics. These all will be covered as a part of these topics. Okay. So you don't need, definitely you don't need WebSockets for Google search or YouTube design or Twitter design, but you definitely need a WebSocket for messaging or chat service. Correct. So we will talk about in detail once we'll go there. Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. I think I tried to answer almost all the questions. If you have anything else, I can wait for some more time and try to answer your questions. And then the batch mostly will be starting from the next week or Sunday. So that will be confirmed to you from Aditya. Yes. Anything else? Okay. I hope. Just give me a minute. Yes. Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining. I hope you understood like what we'll go through in the design classes, and then if you have any other question, feel free to ping it on the WhatsApp group.
One question.
Yes.
What books you will recommend like after like attending your classes for reference purpose?
I would recommend to attend my classes first, and I think that should be more than enough. But there are so many books. I don't know in particular if I don't want to suggest any book in particular because again, I mean, I didn't read anything from the books. I just watch videos, or I attended this course in past sometime, and like 4 years back when I was in college, in my college itself, on the system design. So in general, I don't have any specific book to recommend you, but let me see. I mean, if I can suggest you something, I'll check. But I don't know. I don't know a particular book. There is good book on low level design, but I don't have any particular book for high level. I don't know if there actually exists a book on high level design.
So please suggest the book on LLD part, low level design.
I'll let you know that. I'll check 2-3 books and then accordingly I'll suggest that. Okay.
Prakhar, you will be sharing the recordings for the classes, right?
Yeah.
From that Google Classroom.
That will be shared. Yes, I'll confirm with Aditya, but yes, it will be shared.
Because when we were having a DSS sessions with Amit Tikkiwal, so he was always sharing the sessions recording from Google Classroom. So if that will be great actually.
Yeah, it will be shared. It will be shared.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll share the recordings. Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining. I think we can close it for the day, and then the updates will be provided to you on the group WhatsApp group.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prakhar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Prakhar.
It was nice.
Yeah, thanks, Prakhar. Nice.
Yeah.